this is absolutely fantastic. I have the opportunity of chatting with Adam Shostak, absolutely amazing cybersecurity specialist, as most folks probably know. Just came out with a recent book, Threats: What Every Engineer Should Learn from Star Wars. And it just so happens that I was in Star Wars: The Force Awakens and am a cybersecurity specialist myself who worked on a number of security standards. So it's absolutely fantastic. Adam, thank you very much for inviting me to chat with you a little bit about your your now published book. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about it.
So first, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm glad that you and I have a chance to bond over our love of Star Wars, because after all, it's such an amazing story. It's so much fun. And so I used the stories from the core trilogy in this new book to make some of these ideas about cybersecurity accessible to people who are more generalist software engineers, systems engineers, than they are cybersecurity specialists like us. You know, what we do can be a little bit intimidating, like a Sith, and it can be a little bit difficult to get into with all the jargon, all of the challenges that people face as they deal with the fact that in today's world, they've got to think about security as part of the systems they're building.
And in fact, something that I think is fascinating about what you're bringing up is that there are core learnings that we can bring to the cybersecurity table that are actually core learnings to the zeitgeist of storytelling, right? And I think one of the key pieces of that is, what is it that we learn from something like the Death Star? And here's an empire that has designed a machine, and did they do any threat modeling? We don't know, but it's really interesting for you to take a look at that.
We do. We clearly know, because when the Rebel Alliance steals the plans, they bring them to the moon, they analyze them in like 15 minutes, figure out a battle plan, brief their pilots, and their pilots are already in space as the Death Star nears the moon. So how does this happen? The way it happens, and is something that we can take a lesson from, because the Death Star is this big, complex engineering project. And let me just read a little bit from the book on exactly this. So, moving from the Star Wars answers about how should we keep the plans confidential and whatnot, the trouble was that the Empire has a habit of punishing people who question its plans, so no one felt free to question or criticize the Death Star systems. As a result, it blew up with countless lives on board. Make sure your security remains strong, even if rebels steal the tape backup containing your system architecture. Now, it may sound like I'm still in Star Wars, but these lessons translate well to our world. And so, we can learn from Star Wars not only about should the Death Star have blowout panels in case there's an engine problem, yes, but also we can learn about the importance of culture, things like being willing to listen to the folks around you, rather than having the messenger literally be shot when they bring bad news.
Right. I mean, and I think that's the story that kind of illustrates the day-to-day life of the threat modeler, right? I mean, of the person who's in a cybersecurity job. They're paid to make sure these things happen, and it's really fascinating that you can take the stories, back from time, but then pulled to the fore from someone like George Lucas and see how, in fact, what has happened in fiction is what's happening today. And I think that's what I loved about your book, was that you can take those lessons learned and you can walk into the boardroom and say, no, look, this is a tested time and true story that we should learn from.
You know, one of the things that I think makes Star Wars so phenomenal is that, while the surface story is fantastical space opera, the underlying stories of someone's growth into adulthood, their relationship to their father, the stories that make Star Wars so resonant are resonant because they're real human stories told in a fun and exciting way. And, you know, that's what I tried to do a little bit with the book.
And in fact, you know, we should put this conversation on pause for a second here, because I think we want to really dive in deep and do a long form YouTube video that kind of dives into some of these ideas and concepts. But for now, what we should probably do is say, you know, to folks, hey, pick up a copy of the book and let's come back and let's have a long form conversation, because again, as a lifelong Star Wars fan and having been in The Force Awakens and having developed some cybersecurity standards of my own, I can't wait to pick your brain and see how the stories fit and are useful. So I think, you know, people should pick up the book, and then let's pick this conversation back up on the YouTube channel, and we'll share the conversation with everyone.
Sounds great. And, you know, I hope everyone has an absolutely fantastic Star Wars day.
May the 4th be with you.
Indeed.